Hi, my name is Audrey Coda Davis. I am a student in environmental science and I am a big fan of birds. Today we are going to be taking a walking tour in the Big Apple, which is what we locals call New York, and we are going to be learning about the effect of human interference on migratory birds, and I will be using our lovely New York City and Central Park as an example. I'm going to be outlining what migratory birds are, the challenges they face, and what we can do to help out our feathered friends. I'm going to open up to questions at the end, but if you have any burning questions, feel free to raise your hand. So, for many short distance migrators, migratory birds, like robins or waxwings, they actually learn where to go by learning migration routes from older and more experienced birds. Sometimes, for long-distance migrators, which is most of the migratory birds in North America, birds are actually genetically programmed to fly in a certain direction for a certain amount of time, at a certain time of year. Occasionally, those birds will also use celestial cues like the sun or the stars to orient themselves, or landmark cues. For example, right here in Central Park and the river running through New York, of course, New York is one of the top 4 biggest avian flyways in the United States, which means that birds take one of 4 routes within the United States to get down south where they travel. So they go along the river and along Central Park. You might have seen some of these birds yourselves just walking around. Geese and ducks are very common migrators to see in the fall just because of that very distinctive V shape. Now, if you've ever wondered why geese fly in that V shape, it's because it's a very efficient way for them to travel. The flapping of their wings creates these updrafts from the geese in front of them, which helps them conserve their energy while flying. Additionally, their V-shape allows them to look out for danger and communicate with each other by honking, of course. And yes, before you guys ask, I know there's a burning question here. Do the geese get tired? And the answer to that is yes. So the lead goose is the goose that doesn't get any of that sort of updraft from the other ones, and it actually switches out every couple minutes. So it gets to enjoy those updrafts and travel more efficiently. Geese are very intelligent and cooperative creatures, and scientists have found that their communication is pretty unmatched in the animal world. Guess we could all take a page out of their book, right guys? Well, lots of things can disrupt these migratory bird patterns, not just geese, but all of them. So one of those things is food scarcity, and that can affect how birds migrate because birds eat insects, seeds, they eat berries and larvae and fruits. However, climate change does affect the acquisition of all of these food sources. Climate change can affect the local insect populations, which means that during pollination times, it will lead to less seeds, berries, or fruit. These declining insect populations also impact how accessible larvae or bugs are for these birds. If these birds don't have enough food in one area, they may migrate early to find more food in different areas, or in drastic cases, they might not have the energy to migrate at all. Another situation that can impact bird migration is habitat destruction. Human development can destroy sites where birds stop to rest. This is sites where they may have stopped to rest for millennia before development. So going back to those like learned patterns of shorter distance birds, but also longer distance birds. These are called stopover sites, and loss of these stopover sites may force birds to explore alternate routes, expending energy that once again they might not have. Development can also affect their breeding grounds or food and water sources. The effect of their habitat loss may lead to a failure to complete their migration or to even begin their migration. So We touched on it a little bit earlier, but let's talk about why we're in the Big Apple. New York is one of those 4 flyways positioned on the 4 main routes that migratory birds make. New York is called the North Atlantic Flyway, and it is home to a huge variety of birds, actually. Well before the city was developed and it was just grasslands and wetlands, it developed a lot of hummingbirds, shorebirds, and birds of prey. However, the problem with New York City is that it is also a city that loves its light shows. So we have things like the New Year's Eve ball drop, events or promotions using skylights like clubs or promoters, the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens light show, say that 5 times fast, or most notorious to ornithologists, the Tribute in Lights. The Tribute in Lights first began 6 months after the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center in New York. The Tribute in Lights is a public art installation to commemorate the victims of the 9/11 attacks. They light up 2 huge pillars of light representing the Twin Towers, and they totally illuminate the Manhattan skyline at night to represent those towers. They are up for 24 hours, day and night, and disastrously, the windows of the surrounding buildings reflect the beams of light back and create what scientists call a light dome. Birds are drawn to these lights, believing them to be these celestial cues that we talked about earlier, like skylight or sunlight, and they can veer off the course of their migration. When birds see trees or shrubs or other buildings reflected in the glassy facade of the skyscrapers, they can become confused and think that they can fly through the building or take a shortcut. Unfortunately, this causes them to collide with the buildings more often than not, and often results in their fatality. Bird populations have dropped almost a quarter since 1970, but experts and activists believe that there are many ways to combat bird deaths in New York and outside of it. In New York, activists have partnered with the Tribute in Lights and the New Year's Eve ball drop organizers to track how many of these birds get trapped in these so-called light domes at a time using radar. So if a large number of birds are seen to be inside the lights, and they do define a large number as a huge number, it is 1,000 or more birds in that light dome, the lights get shut off for about 20 to 30 minutes to allow the birds to disperse and get back on track with their migration routes. In a study from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, it was found that during these light shows and events, there were 3 times the amount of birds in the area during these light shows than at any other time. It's not just birds that happened to be in the neighborhood either, but it actually affected birds that had been miles away, and they saw the kind of alluring glow of the city, and they flew those miles away off course to get into the city. So in order to keep those birds on track, Cornell Lab of Ornithology has advised the city to just stay as dark as possible for as long as possible. More and more cities are catching on to the knowledge in order to keep their bird populations safe as well. And yes, now I will bring it back to you guys. You can apply this knowledge to yourself at home as well. The National Dark Sky Association recommends turning off all outdoor lights on your property when not in use. Or if they're absolutely necessary, you can use technology like motion sensor lights or lights that point directly downwards and not up towards the sky. You can also use awnings or blinds or shades to keep light from spilling outside, and that can also have the added effect of preventing collisions with your windows. Another way we can take action is minimizing the use of pesticides and herbicides on plants and bugs to provide food for these birds. In addition to providing food for these birds, it will also benefit the ecosystem as insect populations have dropped, which means pollination is down, so the whole ecosystem is out of whack. But it does affect those birds a lot, especially during those key, crucial migration seasons. So when you're providing food, leaving branches or leaf litter, shrubs can provide those essential foraging habitats or provide cover from those predators for those birds. So that's how I think all of us can have a part in kind of stepping up and helping out the birds. But folks, you've wasted another perfectly good walking tour listening to the birds. You've learned why you see the V in the sky every fall, and you've learned how perilous their journey is becoming due to man-made habitat loss and environmental degradation. I hope that you will all take a closer look at New York's birds now, and the birds outside of New York, and the birds everywhere, and especially during those migration seasons. Remember, there are things that we can do in our own lives to assist our feathered friends. Their fate is in our hands, or should I say, our wings. Questions? No? Cool? Thank you.